everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of the Citrix Session podcast. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. I've got with me, as usual, the Director of Services for XenTegra, Bill Sutton. Bill, how's it going this week?
Going very well this week, Andy, for a Monday. How about you?
It's definitely a Monday, which I look forward to Mondays. I like getting back at it, and then I get started, and then I feel like a train ran me over. But that's okay. That's Mondays.
That's right. Same here.
Anything new in the world of Citrix consulting in Bill's world?
Oh, well, we're finding ourselves pretty busy trying to help customers meet the 2008 R2 end of support that's coming up in the middle of January 2020. So getting a lot of customers that are pushing to get off of that OS as quickly as they can. So a lot of app moves and things of that nature. That's what we're seeing over the course of the past few weeks.
Yeah, I wonder how many people are keeping their eye on Windows 7 end of life as well as 2008 R2 end of life. That's a big deal in Citrix land.
It is. That's what we're seeing.
Yeah. Also, we've had several conversations recently about the co-op program at Citrix. I guess I'll highlight it real quick here, and that is where Citrix is starting to work with partners like us to do joint projects proactively, where a customer can choose to do a project with Citrix Consulting and XenTegra, and it's official and it's a program, right?
That's right. Yeah, we work collaboratively with them, and we end up actually performing the services on behalf or in conjunction with Citrix Consulting. They handle the project management arm of it, and then we assign our consultants and we actually do the work. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, hopefully we can maybe do a podcast on that at some point. But we have with us Krishna Desai. Krishna is a software engineer from Citrix, and I'll let him introduce himself in more detail here in a second. But we're looking at his blog from October 24th, titled "The Cumulative Update 5 for Citrix XenApp and XenDesktop 7.15 LTSR," which stands for Long-Term Service Release, is here. And Krishna, we were joking beforehand, this isn't your normal marketing fluffy type of podcast where all we do is talk about futuristic and great things and sometimes things that don't exist. We try to hit home on real needs for people who are true Citrix followers and Citrix admins. And I think making sure we call out what Citrix calls cumulative update, which is really like a Microsoft service pack, but the idea is to get to things that need to be fixed within the software and get those rolled out, in this case for 7.15. But believe it or not, and I say this a lot, that Bill and I are excited to have you on to talk about a topic such as this. You want to introduce yourself a little better?
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Thanks, Bill. I'm super excited to join you guys. It's my first podcast or a public appearance of this sort. So yeah, thanks. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me over. So yeah, as you said, my name is Krishna. I've been with Citrix for 6 years now, a little over 6 years now. I'm working as a senior software engineer with the customer success engineering team based out in Bangalore, India. So our team mainly works on the long-term service release for Citrix virtual apps and desktops, formerly XenApp and XenDesktops, and we work on releasing cumulative updates for all the LTSR platforms that we have.
So on a previous podcast, we talked about LTSRs and what long-term service releases are, but do you want to take 50 words or less and describe for everybody on this one, in case they didn't hear the previous one, what a long-term service release from Citrix is intended to be?
Yeah. So the long-term service release. So basically, this servicing model, Citrix, did a lot of survey and asked a lot of customers, and we have a lot of large enterprise customers, right? So they usually demand feature stability, and their upgrade or deployment cycles are way too far, and they don't want to keep on upgrading to newest things or try new things. So the customers were looking for product longevity and the feature stability. So for those customers, we wanted to do the earlier model was a hotfix model where we used to get customers used to request for the hotfix and we used to patch them up. But so based on that, we thought this model would be appropriate for such customers, large enterprise customers, especially finance and healthcare. We have a lot of finance and healthcare customers who are on LTSRs. So this is one of those things that is very apt for them.
In addition to that, I'll call out something else that we see in the field a lot, and that is that application vendors, specifically a lot of them in the healthcare industry, they require their customers to be on certain versions of the product. And a lot of times those are LTSRs, and the customers need the LTSRs plus the cumulative updates to stay in line with what the application vendors require or recommend, but in a lot of cases require.
Yes. So with cumulative updates, what we basically do is we have 5 years of support and 5 years of extended maintenance, right? So what we promise on delivering the support for the customers. So we deliver the quality fixes, security fixes. We don't do any feature updates, but mainly quality fixes and security fixes as a part of these cumulative updates. We release it to the customers so that their environment is more secure and stable. So we ensure to keep their environment uptight and always, at the more stable and the most quality checked version.
Hey, Bill, how does LTSRs and cumulative updates apply in the consulting side of what we do?
Well, a lot of customers obviously have focused on 715 LTSR as the go-to. That will change next month probably when Citrix releases the upcoming and expected LTSR. We have some customers kind of waiting on the fence for that. And as far as the cumulative updates, we try to keep them as current as possible. Some customers are reluctant for various reasons to move to the newest one, but we encourage them and assist them in doing so. But one question I wanted to ask Krishna was relative to the cumulative updates, and for the benefit of our audience, cumulative updates apply to all of the pieces of the Citrix stack, so the controller, storefront, the DDAs, or is it focused more just on the infrastructure? Why don't you talk a little bit about that if you don't mind, Krishna?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. So yes, we have something called as LTSR compliant components and LTSR compatible components. I think you can find more information about it on the Citrix Docs site. So all the major components like controller, VDAs, director, studio, storefront, all these are compliant components, and we have the cumulative updates are applied for all those. So any fixes that the customers request for these components, we will be delivering the fixes for those in the cumulative updates pack. And for receiver assets, we have a separate LTSR train that is running for receivers separately. That is not mixed with the XenApp and XenDesktop suite as such. But some components wherein, for example, receiver for Mac, receiver for HTML5. So we don't have any LTSR train for those things. So those things are majorly handled by CR. Any quality fixes that has to be requested from the customer side will be delivered via current release itself for these components.
I see. Yeah, and by comparison, then we have LTSR, of course, and I think probably Andy was going to get to this, but you also have what you referred to just now as CR, or current release, which is the most recent version of the code that has a shorter lifespan in terms of support. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. So the current release mainly involves all the new features, new innovations that we do, performance improvements, and a lot of other great cool innovations. So that is a 3 months release. I mean, we do it every 3 or 4 months, and its support cycle is also a very shorter span.
Right.
So guys, couple questions for you. One thing to call out, right? If someone's using as a service one of your Citrix products as a service, then they're always on the latest. So that should be made aware. And then Krishna, when somebody has a CR, does that also include the latest fixes and the latest features, or not?
So the current release will definitely include all the latest new innovations or the new features that we release. And regarding the fixes, yes, we actually do the reverse integration of all the fixes that we receive as a part of cumulative updates into the upcoming current release. So most of them, yes, they will be integrated back into the current release so that customers will get the latest and the greatest. So that's the idea behind the current release.
And that sounds good. I will call out something that I've seen in the past, and I'm sure you'll be able to respond to this. But sometimes it's the new features that cause new bugs. So yes, you're applying new fixes, which is very appropriate. At the same time, you're introducing net new, and so that's why a lot of people choose the LTSR with cumulative updates. And what I find interesting, or I guess I notice a lot, is that a lot of customers will say they're on LTSR, but they're not on the latest cumulative update, not even close. So you're kind of defeating the purpose of staying on LTSR, and that's one reason why we wanted to have this podcast.
Yeah, so right, we encourage customers to be on the latest cumulative updates because it's the highest quality. It means the highest quality standards, and even for the support and escalations teams that we have, if a customer say now for 7.15 we have cumulative updates 5 released, and if a customer is still in cumulative update 1, there are so as you can see from the blog, we have delivered over 500 fixes over 5 CUs, and the customer issues could be fixed in any one of those CUs. And if at all they raise a support ticket with our support and escalation teams, the most common thought that occurs for the support teams is whether it is if there's any fix on the customer's environment, whether it is reproducible with the latest CE or not would be the first question. Right. So there will be a lot of triage and other things that will happen. So it's always best to be on the latest cumulative update, because any fix that we are going to deliver, even if a customer requests, will be in the upcoming CU. The upcoming cumulative update. So yes, we encourage our customers to be on the latest cumulative updates, and we also provide the direct upgrade path from any cumulative update or even the LTSR base to the latest cumulative update. So it should be a seamless meta installer upgrade, very easy and very seamless. So it should not be much of a hassle to upgrade to the latest CU.
I think you just addressed this, but I want to be clear, right? If somebody installs the product, let's say 7.15 from scratch, they can go immediately to the cumulative update 5 in this case, and
yes,
all
absolutely right.
Updates would have been inside there, all the fixes.
Yes. If you're deploying a fresh 7.15, also you can directly install 7.15 CU5. You don't have to be on the base and then upgrade it. So you can either do a fresh install or an upgrade install over 7.15 CU.
The old guys would call that slipstream, right, Bill?
Yeah, that's what I was just what I was thinking, Andy.
So this is again one of the major improvements with the cumulative updates model, because earlier with the hotfix model, we cannot have a direct install or a direct upgrade path. We have to be on the baseline and then upgrade the hotfix or the hotfix roller pack. So with cumulative updates and the complete ISO suite, the complete ISO being made available as a part of cumulative updates installer, you can directly install and upgrade whenever you want. It's very seamless.
So I'm going to try to start a fight here. I'm going to start by asking Bill the question first. Bill, if you're on cumulative update 4 and cumulative update 5 comes out today, how long before you start to move to 5?
Pretty quick is what I would do. I think what we have found is that the cumulative updates are much more stable, I think, in terms of causing issues than the old hotfix model. Mm-hmm. And would I do it the day it comes out? Probably not. I'd probably give it a week or so, at least, depending on the environment. And obviously, we always recommend that customers test the cumulative update in a QA or test environment, just to make sure it doesn't break an app or anything like that before they roll it to production. So if they do it right, there shouldn't be an issue. But our experience has been that these have been pretty reliable.
That was a very diplomatic and politically correct answer. And,
thanks, Will. You are the ideal customer for us.
I'm going to assume you're going to say ditto to that one.
Yep, absolutely. So, but again, to add from the customer point of view, if I'm a customer of Citrix, then probably I'd be thinking and my deployment is say, more than 1,000 deployments of virtual VDAs. So I'd be basically thinking, okay, what fixes have gone into cumulative update 5? Is there any fix that interests me, or are my users facing any issues of that sort? And if it is, then only I'll upgrade. So that's the common thought that even customers or the IT teams ask, right? So if there is something interesting for me, then only I'll upgrade. Otherwise, I don't. But this notion, it works. But yeah, if at all in future, if there's an issue occurring on your cumulative update, and if you're not on the latest one, then it basically becomes problematic for engineers or the IT teams of customers to triage and then find out what has gone wrong. So with the latest cumulative updates, it's always safe to assume that, okay, this is something that I have to address, and I can, ask Citrix support to help me out.
Yeah, what I would say here is there's a couple of issues there. I think most customers want to be as current as possible, and we do encourage them to check to see if there's any issues they are facing if they're on CU4 or CU3 that have been addressed by the newer CUs. And then that obviously provides a foundation for them to apply it, test it, and apply it to their production environments. The other issue we run into is, for example, a customer that's on CU3 and they have not seen anything in 4 and 5 that they need to upgrade to resolve, and they have an issue and call support. Most of the times, Citrix support, and you're probably aware of this, Krishna, one of the first things they'll ask is, what CU are you on? And if it's not the latest, they'll first have you upgrade to the latest CU. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. If you start having issues that may or may not be addressed by the CUs, that support's going to push the customer to do so, even if the issue isn't called out as being addressed. Yeah.
Yep. That's right.
So, guys, I think we've done a really good job. If we go back to the blog that Krishna wrote, which can be found on the Citrix blog site, blogs.citrix.com. We've done a really good job kind of ticking it off with the introduction here, which is kind of alluded to the concept of wine, right? I mean, every product gets better with time. Brand new stuff often looks shiny and flashy and good, but sometimes it doesn't do the job. And I think the LTSR and the cumulative update concept is a way to accomplish that. And keep us on our toes, keep us up to date without having to constantly be chasing the ball. Krishna, if I jump into the first or the second section of the article, it talks about what's new in cumulative update 5. And you and I talked about this beforehand, but there is a link in this section that takes you out to the release notes, which would have all the fixes listed for cumulative update 5.
Yes.
And from there, you could drill down to number 4, number 3, and number 2, and the first one. But Krishna, we talked beforehand. Are there any particular fixes in update 5 that you want to call out and highlight?
Yeah, so a few fixes that we did for the printing. You can say there were some issues with Win 10 1903 and printing. So we have fixed around those issues. The workflow of printing, maybe I think LD 1256 attempts to print a document might be slow in some workflows. So these were some of the quality issues that we have addressed. So these are the ones that we had many customers requested during our release. So yeah, these were a few fixes that we delivered. So mainly printing has improved significantly with this release. I would say even with Win 10 1903 especially.
Mm-hmm. So, Krishna, what I'm going to do, I actually clicked on the link to the hotfixes, and there are quite a few. Do you remember about how many there were?
In the CU5 specifically?
Well, it says 120 quality fixes. Yep. I guess that's roughly 120. So yes. I'm just going to scroll through these, and I'm not going to ask you to explain any of them, actually. I'm just going to, for our audience, I'm going to kind of go through. So under the fixes site, just for this cumulative update 5, as of November 7th, we've got fixes for director. It looks like there's 4 or 5 for that. And so, guys, what I would encourage for our audience is if you don't know what any of these things are, reach out to Bill and myself, maybe via LinkedIn or even Twitter, but maybe LinkedIn or Krishna via the Citrix blog site, and feel free to ask us. But there's fixes for director, the monitoring solution that's part of the tool, the suite. Fixes for Studio, Citrix Studio, which is our management interface for most of the Citrix environment. Configuration logging service. I bet there's people out there that don't know what that is, and it's a very valuable tool for auditing. The controller, which is the heart and soul, along with the database of a modern day Citrix FMA FlexCast environment. The Linux VDA does not have anything under it, so I have to assume. Krishna, tell me if I'm wrong here, that means there were no fixes for that particular piece?
Yep, that's right. So if the section is missing out here, then we don't have any updates with that component.
Okay. And then profile management. So Citrix Profile Manager looks like there's, 6 or 7 for that particular piece of the solution. There's everybody's favorite provisioning services. There are no, there's nothing listed there, so that must mean there's nothing for provisioning server. There's 2 for storefront. There's a handful of fixes for the client side of Universal Print Server, which I bet there's people listening that have never experienced that. It's a very valuable tool in terms of solving a lot of the printing challenges in the world of hosted printing, aka Citrix. User Profile Management VDA, so the client or the VDA side of the UPM, or the Profile Management Solution. VDA for the desktop OS, so that would be your Win 7, Win 10. operating systems. There's a handful of those, some for printing, like Krishna pointed out. There's 2 on here for keyboard, which I would have, not even expected to be there. But obviously, it's amazing how many people don't realize how many ones and zeros have to happen in order for anything to work. And software as complex as the Citrix solutions is that there's an amazing amount of software development that goes into these things, right?
Yep. Our teams have really worked hard and diligently to deliver these fixes. So yeah.
So the next session under the desktop OS is the session connection section. There must be 25 or so fixes for that alone. Which if you can't connect to the thing or if it's not stable, that's a major issue. And so it looks like it's addressing some of that.
Yeah, we have addressed, I think, a lot of issues with the reconnection. So yeah, usually this session connection and seamless gets over a lot of attention from the customers, and the most number of issues that we fix is on this particular component itself.
All right, so this is my moment to stand on my soapbox here and look at all these fixes for session connections. Hey, Bill, what's the number one reason why I lose my session if I'm a Citrix user?
Probably bandwidth or your network connection.
It's a network connection, right? But but there's a lot of magic that goes into making those sessions work, and absolutely, and Citrix is addressing some of that here. But more often than not, if I lose my connection to my backend, just like what happened this morning with one of my employees, all you have to do is go look at the desktop EDA and see that it was running at 99% memory utilization. So a lot of things were going to break. However, it's important to know that Citrix is always trying to make the session-related capabilities better and more reliable.
Yep. So as we see, I think one of the common complaints that we receive from our customers is that Citrix is slow or the app launch is slow. But from the backend, it's mainly because of the CPUs and the bandwidth consumption that it takes. So yeah, this is one of the common issues that we try to improve release over release.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's things Citrix is doing to compensate for other things not being optimal that gets in the way. So it's a beautiful world from a consulting organization perspective. It's a beautiful world to be a Citrix consultant because there's so much that can go wrong. But at the end of the day, it's still a very beautiful solution and solves a lot of business challenges. So we plug along and keep doing it because it's a great story and a great solution.
Yep.
Section here on smart cards and system exceptions, right? I don't know if anybody's ever done any development, but knowing how to handle errors and things that happen in the system and how to present that information and get it to the right place and around system exceptions, there's a whole development concept there around how to be good at handling system errors and handling them appropriately, which looks like you guys have worked on here in these fixes. User interface. I'm just going to keep going through these, so we'll be here all day. But VDA, the agent, the virtual delivery agent for the server OS, which is a totally different agent than the one for the desktop OS. There's keyboard fixes there. There's printing things solved there. There's a whole other section of session connection related things, which I bet some of that's the same as before, but there may be others because it is a different platform we're on top of. There's system exceptions, user experience, user interface, virtual desktop components, and that's the add-on stuff like the brokering services, things that go along with this, and that's the end. But my point is, guys, if you want more information on this, check out this blog, click on the hyperlink to the fixes, and just scroll through there, and you'll probably see things that apply to things that you didn't know you had problems with, or maybe things that you did know you had problems with.
Yeah, this is a great place to go if you're having issues in your environment. You want to see, to Krishna's point earlier, whether or not your issue is been addressed by the LTSR or by the CU. Just go to the site and do a Control F and search for it and see if it's there. And if it is, obviously that's even more reason to apply this CU.
And this is why they tell you just to apply this. Before, if you get in a situation where it doesn't make sense, apply this and see if the problem goes away.
Yeah.
Yep. Hey, Bill, in your honest answer, in your experience as a Citrix admin, a Citrix consultant, how many times, as a percentage, 1 to 100, have you found that the issue that you were troubleshooting was was a Citrix-related bug versus an environmental setup issue or environmental issue?
Oh, goodness. I thought you were going to ask a different question. I would say less than 50% of the time, where in other words, what you're asking me is how many times have I run into an issue in a Citrix environment that wasn't Citrix?
Yes. That's
what you're asking. It's well lower than 50%, probably more like 30. 9 times out of 10, it's like you said, it's environmental, or it's network related, or it's Active Directory related, server OS related. There's so many moving parts in a setup like this that we've, in my experience, most of the time it's not Citrix, even though it's maybe perceived as so.
I'm close to what you just said there, that 9 out of 10, at least 90, if not higher, more like 95 or higher percent of the time. It's environmental, or it's a configuration, not a bug.
Yes. I think from an interesting statistic that I can contribute to this is the number of support calls that we get. So it's well less than 10% of those will actually get into Citrix fixes, actual Citrix issues.
Really that low? Wow.
Yeah, even around 5 or less than 5. So over 90% of the cases or the support calls that we get are majorly configuration issues or something with the environment, network. I mean, like Bill said, there are a lot of environmental parameters that are involved, and if something goes wrong, usually the first thing that customers do is call support teams. So yeah.
Yeah, I actually had an issue. Excuse me. Yesterday or last week, with a customer that was having problems exporting a certificate from a server and wanted me to open a Citrix case. And I said, well, it's really not Citrix. This is an issue with your certificate. So I think they understood that, and we resolved it. But nevertheless, to your point, Krishna, a lot of times customers, when it concerns a Citrix environment, the first thought is to call Citrix, even though it may be completely unrelated from a technology perspective to the issue.
Yep. Also, I'd like to also call out on one thing here. So we have a forum called as Citrix Discussion Forums, and there are a lot of Citrix engineers and product managers who are pretty active on that forum. So I think customers and partners, if they have any issues with that, they can actually use that forum to post any questions that they want, and our engineering and the product team, support teams will try and resolve it then and there itself. So that's one really good forum or a platform that our customers and partners can use to actually get their issues resolved quickly. The URL is discussions.citrix.com.
And guys, I'm gonna do something I don't normally do here, and I'm gonna stop and do a XenTegra commercial, and that is to just tell people that whether it's XenTegra or someone else, that's where a really good partner comes in to help you kind of understand the differences and maybe challenge you and hold you accountable for when to blame Citrix and when to look internally for what's going on. And as we've talked about here, more often than not, way more often than not, 90+% of the time, it's something that's been configured improperly or something that you changed. That's another thing too, right? It was working, now it doesn't work. What changed, right? And a lot of times people, by default, they knee-jerk reaction, want to blame the software vendor. And the truth is, it's most of the time not. I mean, this stuff works. I jokingly tell people sometimes that complain about Citrix version whatever, I like, well, you must have got the bad code. They must have shipped you the bad code. And the truth is, everybody gets the same code. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, moving on to kind of wrap this up. It says, where can you learn more about the servicing options? I'm sorry. Before that is, where can I get the Cumulative update? So, Krishna, what would be your best advice to tell a Citrix admin where they can find this code?
Our download site, download.citrix.com. So you can subscribe to our Citrix RSS feeds. I think they'll be notified. And I think one thing that our teams have been doing is whenever there's a new release, I think we are planning to have or address these in blocks. So if they are constant watchers of blogs.citrix.com, so they should be able to get all the updates here. I think if our support teams are also well equipped with all the information that is posted on this blog. So if they just call Citrix support, they'll be able to help and then resolve anything that they want.
Okay, great. And then the next and last section is, where can you learn more about servicing options? I think we've talked about it a lot here. Hopefully people find value in our conversation here, but would you give feedback on where can people learn around the concepts of the different support or the servicing branches?
Yep. So Andy, also one thing I'd like to mention here is on the Win10 SAC semi-annual channel releases that Microsoft is doing lately as a Windows as a service update. So they basically release updates or feature updates to Win10 platforms twice a year. So we have aligned our CU schedules during that time so that our customers can take full advantage of these Win 10 releases also. We with the partnership of Microsoft, we get the insider preview builds, and then we do a lot of compatibility testing with our CUs with the upcoming Win 10 releases, so that our customers we get the day 0 or day 1 support of Win 10 newer releases with Citrix latest Cumulative Update 5. So that's one advantage or a great value that even cumulative updates bring to the table, along with the quality fixes.
Well, that brings a whole new element to this, right? Not only are most Citrix technologies are really just an extension of what the operating system platform allows. Yeah. And the speed at which Microsoft is moving, which I like to call it agile. I assume it's agile, but the speed at which they're moving is driving a lot of how Citrix and other really close partners of Microsoft have to react. And you guys have done a really good job of being as forward with that as possible.
Yep.
So the very last note in here says, please note that the virtual apps and desktops 1912, which Bill and I had a podcast that related to this a little bit a week or so ago that hopefully people have already listened to, but the LTSR for 1912, so that means December 2019 LTSR is planned for release in Q4. I think December is the time frame. I don't think people will jump on that right away. However, I do think people need to be testing it. And Krishna, would you say that most people should wait for a cumulative update before they jump on the latest LTSR, or should they go straight to the LTSR? And maybe you're the
I think so. 1912 release comes with a lot of great HTX improvements, new features around Microsoft Teams optimization. That's one of the biggest feature that 1912 comes with. I think Microsoft Teams is going to be one of the greatest collaboration tools that most enterprise companies will use going forward, and our optimization pack towards Teams. And there's a lot of HTX improvements that have been done to enable offloading of video and audio and all the screen sharing that Teams offers on the client side to make it more optimal. So that's one big feature and one big USP that I would say to move to 1912, and a lot of performance optimizations, a lot of improvements with Citrix Workspace apps. So I think customers should directly. I would encourage customers to move to 1912 right away. It comes with a lot of new features and a lot of improvements in the performance as well.
Hey, Bill, what's your take on that question around how quickly people should adopt a new release?
Well, I really think it comes down to a couple of things. Excuse me. One is the features and functionality, like Krishna just mentioned, as to whether or not they really need that right away. That's one reason. We have a number of customers that are actually deploying CRs right now in anticipation of the LTSR, and then plan to do an in-place upgrade, which is what one of the blogs we talked about actually allows for. But I think in terms of how quickly, it's really going to depend on the customer and their timeline and their appetite for the new features that are significant, that are in the 1912 LTSR. Because when you think about it, the 715 LTSR, obviously customers are on that with the CUs. Any of the new features that have been delivered in the current releases since then are not available to them until they upgrade to the 1912 LTSR. So, and that's a lot of features, like Krishna said, around HDX and Teams integration and things of that nature. So I think a lot of what's going to drive it is the feature set, and obviously customers that approach that 5-year window will want to move on to it as well.
Okay.
Yep, that's rightly put by Bill.
Well, guys, I appreciate you joining. I don't think we're set the world on fire with really. I don't want to say this. This isn't marketing talk, right? I mean, we talked about it in the beginning. I appreciate you joining. This is good content. I think this is content that every Citrix admin out there needs to be having and have a discussion with his peers. And I think hopefully we've helped people with that. Krishna, anything else before we adjourn here that you want to make sure you convey to the folks listening?
Nothing much, Andy. Nothing much. So just before we can wind up, I'd like to thank you all at XenTegra, from all of us here at Citrix, for all the hard work and the contributions to the Citrix community. We really appreciate and value that a lot. Thank you so much. And yeah, with 1912 coming up, I think it's going to be a great release, and we'd encourage our customers to move to the release. So yeah, please watch out and stay tuned. And you guys can reach me on Twitter. My Twitter handler Desai DESAI_Krishna, or you can reach me on LinkedIn if you guys have any questions or any queries on these topics.
Yeah, that's great. And thanks for the kind words. And we'll take it. To be honest, Krishna, Bill, and I, we just wanted to talk about these things anyway, so we thought we'd turn it into a podcast. So it works out.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay, Bill, anything else before we let you go that you want to make sure people who follow us know about?
Not really, other than just to say, to the listeners out there, if you're moving towards or planning to move towards 1912 LTSR, or you need help with that or with a cumulative update, reach out directly to us at XenTegra through your client executive or directly with me. My Twitter handle is @bsutton2009, or you could hit me up on LinkedIn as well.
So, Bill, I would say the same thing, right? If somebody wants to find me, they can find us through our website. They can find me at Twitter at XenAndy, XenAndy. But yeah, I mean, if you have conversations you just want to have, I mean, not a consulting engagement, but you just want to talk shop, I'll carve out as much time as I can, whenever I can, for anybody who wants to talk through some of this stuff. So,
same here. Yeah.
I guess with that, guys, thank you very much for joining, and we'll do it again at a later date. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Bill. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.